English channel test. English channel test. English channel. Can you hear me?
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Frankfurt Pavilion. Every year we invite here a prestigious guest speaker to discuss with us the big trends of the book publishing industry in a global context. My name is Rüdiger Wischenbart, and I research every year the Global 50 publishing ranking, which is a ranking and analysis of trends and developments in global publishing across all continents. And that is available from now on as a reference to really track and follow what's going on. And every year we try to get the participation of one preeminent speaker from the industry to look beyond the traditional publishing, to look into the future, to look into and identify where is innovation going on, where are new developments, etc., etc. And this year we are particularly, and that is based, yes, and this is behind our choice of our guest speaker for the CEO talk, which is connected to the Global 50 publishing ranking. This year, we are particularly happy to welcome Mr. Hou Xiaonin, who is the CEO of Yuewen. Yuewen is the online literature division of Tencent, one of the huge Chinese corporations. And I must put some shame on us. He is the first Chinese guest that we could invite. Please give give an applause of welcome to Mr. Hou.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And it's a pleasure for me to be here in Frankfurt and to join all colleagues of publishing agencies. Sorry, can you hear me? I don't know how many of you have read about online literature. Actually, in 2003, the Chinese website Qidian.com was the first to host Chinese online literature writers. And we have gone into the era of PC, of mobile internet. We can say that online literature has seen 20 years of development. On Yuewen platform, we have more than 10 million writers writing there. And we have also famous books adapted into different formats, including films, cosmic books, animations. And in 2017, we launched the first overseas platform, which is called Web Novel. And for the moment, we have nearly 400,000 overseas writers and many outstanding books that they wrote on our platform. So it is a great pleasure for me to exchange with you about online literature and its development in the future.
Further, why we are so happy to welcome Mr. Hou. But the model of our conversation, because we want to really engage an international dialogue here, our model is that our publishing partners for the ranking, which are from New York to Beijing, in London, in Paris, and in Germany, they ask questions on the specifics. So I invite at first interviewer Edna Vodka, who is the international editor of Publishers Weekly in New York. Ed, what do you want to know about?
Certainly the news, we've heard about the platform, but could you tell us a little bit more of the origins? What was the inspiration? It's been 20 years now. And how, over the course of 2 decades, have you been able to accelerate its success? What has been the basic business model, and what has been the attraction of your platform that's enabled you to really make this work when so many other platforms that are not so dissimilar have fallen by the wayside or disappeared?
Thank you for your question. For us, Chinese traditional writers, in the beginning, when they wrote, they usually wrote through publishing agencies, editors, and until the emergence of the internet and new technologies in the last century, in the 1990s to the beginning of this new century, in China, we have seen the emergence of several BBS forums where writers, netizens spontaneously wrote and created. They found that it's not necessary for them to contact publishing agencies to publish their work. So in the beginning, those writers, they gather and wrote spontaneously out of their passion, out of their enthusiasm, their willingness to publish their stories. And then come our website, Qidian.com, where we see many passionate writers, online literature writers who wrote their stories on our website and published them serially. We found that many users actually and readers like their stories very much. And we started to think on that business model. In 2003, we launched the pay-to-read model as a business model. That is to say, the writer, while writing and publishing serially, the reader could pay for reading the new chapters. And those best stories could be put into the VIP channels, where not only the readers can pay, but also they can donate and gift and tip the writer. Therefore, we see a very positive incentive circle for both readers and writers. So in the beginning of 2000 and until now, until the era of the mobile internet, many, many good writers emerged from our platform. And a bigger opportunity came with the mobile internet age, where everyone have access to a smartphone and everyone can, in real time, check the online literature that they like. So our online literature users have exploded in number. Our online literature user through mobile internet coverage, we have more than 500 million readers reading our web novels. In China, around 1 billion netizens we have. So basically, we have in two netizens there is one reading online literature. And today we are seeing the fourth stage of online literature, where we have a whole ecosystem where we have complete IPs based on those stories. So since 2015, 2016, we started commercializing and adapting our IPs, animations, including our stories that are, for example, Joy of Life, Battles Through the Heavens, and we have also adapted them into games and other formats of IP. So we're thinking that pay-to-read model is a basic foundation for online literature to develop as a business model. And through writing, those writers can have a return. And for our readers, we have access to a huge number of stories. And you see, in the Western world, we have many famous IPs, including the Lord of Rings, etc. Those are the things that we aspire to in China, and that is the development in the last 2 decades in China. Thank you.
Impressive, of course. And in the course of our conversation, we want to bring different angles and many different angles, and learn from different angles how you work. And I invite our next interviewing partner, Lena Scherer from the German trade magazine Buchreport. What do you want to know about?
Yeah, I'm really interested in the business models. So what do you differently from traditional publishers on the one hand, and from Western publishing platforms such as Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing, for example?
Thank you for your question. In fact, compared to conventional Western publishing agencies, as a matter of fact, we have a very good relation with them in the beginning. And compared to those traditional publishing agencies, we are, of course, different. The biggest difference is that there is a co-creation existing in the ecosystem. That is to say, compared to conventional, traditional publishing agencies, where the editors take the initiative, and there is a linear relationship between the author and the reader. Usually you see the reader can read a book when the book is finished, right, in the traditional time. And our model with Yuewen, it is publishing serially. I mean, the reader and the user, the writer, they have an interaction. Every time a writer finishes a chapter, he will pay special attention to the comments left by the readers. And for a good story to become really good before writing, the writer already has received good reactions from the reader, sorry. So we have, for example, a story on our platform. Once 30 characters have been written by the author, when the writer says that I'm going to write the next series, and immediately 600,000 readers subscribe to his next novel. That is to say, how those fans, those readers, really liked his stories. And this story has made a record on all our top rankings on our platform. And that is when we found that co-creation is a very good incentive for the writers. And through the comments by those readers, those writers could be influenced. And there is a co-creation, and storyline could be also influenced. Second thing, our platform is a very open platform, an inclusive one. On our platform, we have over 10 million authors and their works, so covering different genres. If previously in the conventional, traditional way, a writer has to cater to a specific group of readers in order to be famous. However, in our platform, even if you are only facing a niche market, you could be successful. And for those stories that are not seeing such a huge fan group on our platform, even those stories could be successful subsequently in the adaptations into films and dramas. And we have been paying special attention to science fiction, for example, as a genre. And under science fiction, there are sub-genres that can cater to the different needs of readers. So I think that's why we call it an open and inclusive platform where we can really discover different needs of the reader. And another thing, many of our writers are not specialized. They are not professional writers. Many are professors from university, from all walks of life. They can put their own story into their fictions so that there is attachment between the writer and the reader. This reduced, in a way, the threshold for someone to become a writer. And in this way, we create such a business model where the readers are allowed to comment and to interact directly with them. Everyone can become a good writer. Everyone has the right to write on our website. And so that is the biggest difference compared to traditional publishing houses. Thank you.
For authors especially.
Can we repeat the question, please?
Yes, of course. What is it that makes the platform attractive for authors and content creators?
That is also a very good question. Thank you. The three priorities for our platform. First one is to serve our authors. The second thing for us is to create good contents. And the third one is to build a good ecosystem. So on our platform, we can provide comprehensive benefits to authors, including our editors. Those editors will accompany new writers with a series of trainings, incubation mechanisms. And for those phenomenal writers, we have very strong support that we provide to them. And in the process of creation of the authors, we believe it's not only important for them to be successful in literature, but also we consider about the adaptation in the future. So in the beginning of the creation process, we provide guidelines to those writers so that they can avoid going through difficulties in the future, so that there is the shortcut between the writer and a successful commercialized pathway. In this way, we can avoid many hassles for the writers. And second, we continue to provide good stories. That is an inexhaustible source of our energy, because many writers hope that their stories could be legendary or become something that could be passed into the next generation. So they consider other intangible benefits more important than economic benefits. So with a good story that comes out from our platform, this is incentivizing or encouraging other new writers to come to our platform. For our platform, those authors born after 1997, they account for 70% of the writers. So you can say that on our platform there are young writers. Basically, they are young writers, and they are even born after 2000. Those young writers writing on our platform. We always say that good stories never end, and a good writer should always come to our platform. This should become a continuous source of energy, and we hope that their stories could be put on our platform. And of course, as for commercialization and as for searching for a partner to adapt those stories into animations, films, of course, a writer does not have so much resources or energy to do that. And what we do is to provide a platform, a integrated set of service to tell the writer what kind of format is most suitable for your story and who to work with is the best way to become successful. So this will really save a lot of hassle for the writer. So these three priorities, as we consider the most important for our platform to attract those writers.
That's very interesting for me because you, in a way, introduce creation models that are extremely opposite, different from traditional writing of literature. There you have one writer all by himself or herself, write all alone in isolation, inventing, creating the story. And you, in the same time, introduce models that we know from movie writing, yes, where you have teams. And the second observation is, you mentioned that many stories are serialized. And again, this is something that we see very strongly in TV series, in movie series, in cartoon, graphic novel series. So let us know a little bit more about these approaches from movie creation, from TV creation that you bring into writing.
Thank you. In 2018, we launched a top story on our platform, Joy of Life, which is a story about the Eastern ancient world. In this setting, in the courts, there are rivalries of powers. So you can understand it as the Chinese version of the Game of Thrones, for example. So in the story, after the story, we adapted into film, and it made huge success globally. In 27 countries and regions, it has been released and translated into 7 different languages. Before, we normally adapted conventional stories into TV drama series, but this one was the first one adaptation based on online literature. We didn't expect it to become so successful and to have such a big audience. Actually, the story itself was more famous than we expected. So once it is adapted, this story, The Joy of Life, was so popular. And for now, we have just finished the shooting of the season 2. And on Tencent, we have over 6.5 million people subscriptions. And the overseas license has been purchased by Disney already. We found it interesting that when it's broadcast overseas, the readers of the original book on our platform also increased, because so many people, they have read the book already, but there are many people, they didn't read the story before the drama series came out. So they came back to our platform and to find out and to discover the original story for themselves. So this is really an interesting phenomenon that expanded our readers online.
I need to replace or represent now two of our publishing partners which are not here in person. That is the Bookseller, which is based in London, as you know, and Bookdao, our Chinese publishing partner for the global ranking. They are based in Beijing. But I collected all their questions and thoughts already in the forefront to make their thinking part of our conversation. Now, what I want to learn more about, you explained to us how much of the movie industry, techniques, working models, etc., were integrated into that writing. The other thing is, you say there are so many new writers. 77% born after 97, which is huge. How can you identify in your platform among the thousands and thousands of new pieces, this one is perhaps a good starting point for a game, that other one not so much, but it could be a graphic novel. How can you recognize this? Is this are your people just having such a great intuition, or do you have strategies to go more systematically about that recognition?
This is a very interesting question indeed. Actually, we have been continuously exploring the overarching design for a top IP, that is how we call them, which is, in a sense, how do we plan for the development of an IP, starting from the selection of a good story? Well, we do not have a very complete and systematic approach. However, we do have several approaches. For example, first, from the statistical angle, whether it is for adaptation into film or drama, it is always important to consider first the statistics. And then we can have an idea of how big the fan base could be for this story and how much margin can we have in order to expand the story into other formats. And second thing, age should be considered. For example, a story could be attractive to young people, and in this way, it's good to be adapted into animation or comic books, because those are the two formats that young people especially like. And for some other contents or genre, that could be more interesting to be adapted into films, because there are age issues. Those people of different ages will like different formats. And the story, of course, is really important. What kind of stories could be more interesting for a certain kind of age? Just now, I talked about Joy of Life, My Heroic Husband. All those stories have a very strong character that is catered to the adaptation into films. So that is how we decide those are the stories that could be changed into films. And for some other stories that are very imaginative, that will require a lot of special effects, a lot of CG. So in this way, we will consider first adapting into animation, because the animation is a format that usually have an easier return economically. And because for human films, you have to need a lot of CG effects to represent the original story, and it's not very easy to do. But compared to animation, in animation, it's easier to do. So that is how we select different formats of adaptation, all based on the consideration of our team themselves. But the big logic is there is a strong connection between animation, comics, and games. So when you are planning for comic books or animation, you should already have an idea about the subsequent adaptation into games, because there is a huge trend of integration between cosmics, animations, and games. And if you play game, you usually will see there are serial stories, there are different chapters, and that is highly similar to animation in order to give an immersive effect to the user. Before, when we did not have so many experience, we used to do it differently. We used to have separate teams for games and animations, and this will not create a very integral feeling for the users for both formats. So now what we are doing is to have an integrated approach, but overall we are exploring still in terms of overarching design of the top stories. We're still working on it, but it is very critical question that you asked, because a decision made a few years ago about the overarching design of an IP could have a future influence, a huge influence on the success of the subsequent adaptation. Because for a film especially, you have to anticipate 3 to 5 years for the adaptation. And once the thing is already done, it's not so easy to alter the story, the format of the adaptation. So that is why we say that we have an IP committee, which is in charge of selecting and planning for the overarching design of the IP. Once we decide to go about the adaptation of an IP in different formats, we have the full participation and full discussion around and inside this committee to decide what are the what are the first adaptation formats that we should consider for a specific story. And it differs from story to story. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach. So we always need to have a thorough discussion, have a good consideration of the statistics, and before we can make a final decision about the adaptation of the story.
So if I understand correctly, you emphasized several times our team, we have a committee, so humans and their intuition plays a big role. And on the other side, you emphasized, well, when we have that kind of genre, that appeals to young people, they like games, so these are more methodological approaches. So I suppose you also have tools, IT tools, to flag, to bring a red flag and says, oh, that story could be going in that direction. Is this integration between good technology and humans?
对，是的，就是
Yes, in fact, we combine statistics, and IT technologies and our intuition. As we go about the selection of the IP, of course, there is a stage where we consider first the statistics. So those stories that we select should satisfy a minimum requirements in terms of statistics. And in that, we have many methods. For example, a story that is similar to a precedent successful story, so we can draw from that successful approach from the past, and then and apply that to the new story in the adaptation. Of course, we have very professional editors who read a lot, and they really know about our stories. And all those teammates who have very much experience in the whole team, they have come to give birth to such an approach that we have in our platform.
creative industries. So it's still creative industries.
创造的是对。
I ask Jacques Brownstone, who is the editor of Livres Hebdo, our partner in Paris.
Hello, my question is, does Yuewen have a plan for an international expansion? And if so, where do you see the most relevant competition in the field of online literature and entertainment?
好，谢谢。
Thank you for your question. In 2017, we have launched our overseas platform, which is called Web Novel. As I have introduced, it is the international version of qidian.com. So an online literature, overseas online literature platform. It is basically the same compared to the Chinese version. So on this platform, authors can write and readers can pay to read. On this platform, we have nearly 400,000 overseas creators, authors, and we have also many overseas original stories. Many overseas authors, they adored our platform. To create on our platform has become a daily routine for them. So I think this is a very good integration or exchange, cultural exchange between the West and the East. And on our platform, we also work with traditional publishing houses. It is more of cooperation than a rivalry, because our business model, our potential, our fan base decides that there is an incremental market. And we have overseas authors that create different stories compared to those Chinese authors. Those stories more of the fantasy, science fiction, apocalypse story. So these all makes our platform more diversified, and more different stories will be born from our platform. Our overseas expansion just started, and we especially are willing to work with global partners, to exchange with them, to cooperate with them. And this is also one of the goals for me to come to Frankfurt Book Fair. And we also have our permanent stand on this book affair. We have brought with us several famous stories wrote by overseas authors on our platform. You are all welcome to check them out. In the hall number 5, you have Russian author, German author, Indian author, Philippine author. We hope that through our platform, Web Novel, it will become a forum of international co-creation. Overseas authors are all welcome to participate, to join our platform. And we also hope that on Web Novel, those good stories born on that platform should one day become huge IPs with global influence, such as The Lord of Rings.
Most interesting because a few years ago, in 2019, we had for the CEO talk Kelly Lügenbiel, who was or still is for Netflix the director of content acquisition for all of Europe. And as we all know, Netflix draws a lot of their stories from authors, but also topics based in Turkey or in Germany or in France or wherever. So when can we expect a similar storyline coming on the Yuewen platform with stories from, you mentioned you have already a German author, but that kind of localization, is that in your planning?
Well, we will see what are the stories that are suitable for global platform. For example, Joy of Life season 2 has been purchased by Disney, and many books and stories could be very interesting for global adaptation into films or dramas, especially in science fiction genre. This is a global genre, right? So when the world is facing global challenges and emerging technologies, in this era, how we human beings face such changes, how do we write our own stories in such a setting? Of course, on Yuewen, you find many stories about this topic. And I think those are the stories that could be interesting to be adapted into global stories. And you talked about those platforms. I really wish to cooperate with them in the future.
I'm very much looking forward to this. I think Edna Vodka of Publishers Weekly still has a little question. We have a few minutes left, and we will not let you go before.
Hi there. It's very similar to the question you just asked previously, but in the United States, we have many writers who have this dream of being published in China. So they write stories that work in China, or they think they work in China. Much in the same way Hollywood has been adapting movies so they are popular not only in North America, but especially in China. Are you seeing a trend of Chinese writers writing in a way that makes them popular outside, or potentially popular outside of China? Storylines that are more Western or possibly European?
As for our platform, many stories are very diversified. Actually, in the past few years, we emphasized on Eastern stories, but we have been focusing more on new stories, new genre. And science fiction, as I have just introduced, is an emerging genre on our platform. We are already planning some science fiction stories, and to consider the possibility of adapting them into huge IPs of global influence. We are considering also adapting into dramas, TV series, so that one day they could be broadcast around the globe. I think there are many new possibilities continuously emerging because those creators, those authors are so creative. I cannot stop talking about them, but there are so many stories, there are so many authors on our platform. There are so many good stories that could be very interesting for international release in TV and in films. And as we see the influence of social media, we are seeing new opportunities. But with good partners and good stories, we could develop those stories into franchised, into serial stories that could have a very huge potential in the market. We still need to work more on that, of course.
For the readers of Livres Hebdo.
We are, we oh, we have talked about a lot about platform and that kind of stuff. What can you say about the perspective of the, let's say, good old paper book in China and in Yuan?
Please.
When releasing the first initially digital story in a printed book.
Actually, in 2006, 2007, we started printing our online books into physical books, because at that time we found that many of our top stories have huge fan base, and we contacted leading publishing houses in China. But you see, those online literature, web novels, are huge. They could reach 3 million characters, Chinese characters. So it could be very, very huge, heavy for physical book. So we have to readapt it into optimal versions. And in this case, we can publish them in a serial manner. For example, The Joy of Life, The Battles Through the Heavens, they have physical versions. And in China, there is a phenomenon because people read online stories very much, and physical books kind of become a derivative product that they collect. They do not read them; they collect them. So that is why we publish those physical books with a lot of added value. For example, the autograph of the author and many photos, so that the readers can collect them.
So if I summarize that, it's one more time. If I just lost my sound. Yes. Okay. If I summarize this, it's once again not either digital or print.
那么又是我们这个中心思想，就是不是说，要不然就是
Back again. Thank you so much, Mr. Hou Xiaonin, for being with us, sharing so much rich detail on what you are doing with online literature and online reading in those very, very many different formats. Thank you also to my publishing partners, Edna Wodka from Publishers Weekly, Lena Scherer from Buchreport, Jacques Brownstein for Livres Hebdo, and Bookdao in China, and the Bookseller in London. Here, I point you to our Global 50 ranking. That is online now. It's a big book of 250 pages. It includes the list, who are these companies, who owns them. It's added with an analysis that explains trends and developments. And then for 50 of these companies, you have really detailed company profiles. Take advantage of that information, and then we could stream that conversation, share the link, and which you find on the website of the Frankfurt Book Fair between all the other streams of sessions. And I wish you all a very good and successful and also enriching Frankfurt Book Fair. Thank you very much.
好，谢谢 ，Thank you very much，谢谢。